Welcome to the Dad Show podcast. How y'all doing?
It's part one today. Is that correct, Lincoln?
Yes.
Thank y'all for listening. Have a great day.
You too.
Welcome to the Dad Show podcast, a show all about impacting, empowering, inspiring, and uplifting information to become a better dad, husband, man, and mentor. And now your host, Ryan Ladd.
Welcome back to the Dad Show, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank y'all for being here, for being with us and watching. I've got Mr. Tristan Greth in the studio today. He's going to provide some great insight, and
we hope great insight.
I know it's coming. I've had too many conversations with you where it's where it hasn't been, or where it has been, I guess. Anyhow, man, Tristan, I just want to thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for having me.
So, if you don't mind, take just a quick second and let everybody know who they're listening to, who they're seeing on YouTube and stuff, and then we'll get into the rest of it. Yeah,
well, my name's Tristan Greth, and from California. Imagine that, right?
All the way to Tennessee.
All the way to Tennessee, which I consider home sweet home.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I think I was Tennessee at heart all my life, and maybe that's why I got into so much trouble. I finally got to a place where I can be myself.
Exactly.
From California, spent all my life in California, moved out to Tennessee with my wife and our 5 children at the time. We're a blended family, so we'll probably get into that discussion at some point.
Yes, sir.
Moved out here in 2022 and with the Great Exodus, and just obviously it was a call of God that brought us out here. Many people ask, well, how did you end up in Tennessee?
Well, that's what I was about to ask you. So
yeah, well,
that's a good segue.
Yeah. So we moved out here, left everything behind. I was a full-time pastor for 15 years out in California. I've been in ministry and all that stuff for quite some time. And we really, it was just a call of God. We couldn't shake it. We didn't know why Tennessee. We didn't know where we were going, and we had so much comfort, so much security in California. Being a pastor there for 28 years. Involved in ministry, full-time pastor on staff for like 15 years. There was just anywhere you turned, I knew we were taken care of. We had that fabric of Christian community and relationships, which are vital for life itself.
Yes, yeah.
And that was a hindrance in this whole process because, at the end of the day, I didn't want to let that go because I knew, man, if I lost my job, I got in another motorcycle wreck, something happened, I knew that there were a number of people who would automatically just be there to step up to take care of my family and take care of our children and to help my wife. But we wrestled with the Genesis text that, listen, Abraham was called to go to a place he'd never been, to become a people he didn't even know of, and to become something he's never been before. And the life and journey of faith requires that at points in time, you leave it all behind and step into the unknown. And I know enough about my relationship with God that if you want to see, you don't want to take uncalculated, dumb risks.
Yeah.
But there's a great book, John MacArthur, it's called The Book on Leadership. And he talks about calculated risks in which we step into the unknown. And I remember just kind of resting on that, this is a calculated good risk. It's not a dumb risk.
Yeah.
People like, what are you doing? Moving away. And we're leaving it all. We really left it all. 50 years of relationships and everything else to come to a place we didn't know, to people we didn't know. We didn't know anybody out here.
Yeah.
And it's just been one miraculous day after another in these last almost 3 years now. So Tennessee is our home. I told my wife, do not bury me in California. You will bury me in Tennessee when I take my last breath.
Good old East Tennessee.
Tennessee, yes.
For those that don't know, that not only did you move to Tennessee.
Now I know about East Tennessee.
Well,
right?
but I'm saying that not only did you move to Tennessee from California, this small little
Yeah.
old country state of Tennessee, but to come to Roane County,
Yeah.
Tennessee, which is even smaller at all aspects.
Well, yeah, we thought we were moving to Knoxville. We knew it was East Tennessee, but we didn't understand about Roane County,
Yes.
these secret gems,
No,
that's
it's not a
other
secret gem. Let's not tell too many people about that.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's a whole other story how we ended up here, but
Well, that's awesome,
Yeah.
man. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
And I'm glad for the friendship.
I love you,
and
man.
the relation. I love you.
there's
It's
certain
really-
people you just naturally connect with,
Yes.
and they gravitate to, and
It's not by coincidence either. Like
No.
it is 110%. That's one thing we've learned through our journey
Yeah.
is that, people say, "Oh, that's a coincidence that you met up," or "That's a coincidence that no."
Yeah, I don't
Nothing happens
find
by
coincidences in Scripture, so I tend not to move in that direction.
Oh, I agree 100%.
I do gravitate towards radicals,
Mm-hmm.
and when I look certain men that I can see that have the same, I'm nothing great by any means, but when I see a radical spirit, I've just never been. And there's nothing wrong with just steady Eddie, status quo. I'm not condemning that in any way, but I'm just my gearing and my nature.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even when I was in the world before Christ, I was a radical.
Yeah.
And it was a radical idiot, right? A radical drug addict and a radical criminal, but I was a radical.
Yeah.
And that nature, or that drive, better said, stayed with me into my Christian life. So when I connect with, people I see that are movers and are radicals and are willing to go into the flames of whatever it may be, I'm drawn to that. I think men deep down inside that are leaders are drawn to that. And
Well, first of all,
Yeah.
thank you, because that's a great compliment. I greatly appreciate that, and I never really thought about it that way till you said that. Like that's awesome. So thank you for that. Number two, everybody wants, even non-believers, children, women, like everybody in the world wants that superhero. You know what I mean? Wants that person that, and looks up to that person that, like you said, jumps into the fire, like goes and saves people and helps people and, moves people. And be that quote unquote radical, that's what people in the world, you got Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, all that. They want that superhero kind of person.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you're 100% right with those kind of people, the mentality and stuff that doesn't care what it is. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll take care of it. We'll conquer it no matter what. And we'll help pull you out, whatever. People are drawn to that, and they want that. They may not be able to have that inner fire in themselves, but they still look up to that. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. I never really
Yeah, I think the culture more than ever right now is there's a void. There has been a void, not overall, but in general, in leadership. So I think leadership, people gravitate to leadership.
Yes. Yep.
And there are natural born leaders, and then there are leaders that are created through circumstances and fires and tribulations and trials, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think people are hungry for leadership. Homes are hungry for leadership.
Yes.
Wives are hungry for leadership. And it's probably, listen, I haven't arrived at the scene in leadership. I'm not saying I have, but if there's one thing a man is going to be bent on, and that is to be able to lead his family and lead his home.
Which
right?
is the reason for this podcast.
There's a reason for this podcast.
Like make men better leaders in their home, better Christian men in their home, husbands and fathers. Because like you said, the women and children need that.
And some guys, a lot of them that I witness or talk to don't know how to lead. What's the first step in leadership?
Yes.
How do I do that? Maybe Christian or not, there's a sense of leading the home, and more so with obviously being a God-focused individual, having Scripture as your basis, being filled with the Holy Spirit, being redeemed by Christ, all of that. There is a passion, I think a God-given passion that you have to lead.
Yes.
And maybe men don't, don't know how to take the first step in leadership.
Yeah.
You know, homes are in disarray, cultures are in disarray, towns are in disarray, government's in disarray. But do I have to be in disarray?
No.
No, I don't.
But it is so easy to just go with the way the world is and be influenced by the world rather than stepping up and saying, no, this is not going to take place in our household. It is easier to give the kids or you yourself be on the phone and social media and just be drawn and influenced by that. And then you start living your life like that rather than stepping up and saying no.
Well, if you think about this too, you look at the highest office in the land, let's say the U.S. government, the presidency. I mean, we saw years ago with like the Clinton era that I could lie, I can cheat, I can be disloyal, and I can just continue on in life.
Yes.
And what message was that resoundingly sending to every American and across the globe, that I can stay in the highest levels of office and do what I want with no moral consequences, no consequences at all.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was a defining moment for our country. And I think that's why we've come to the end of that, especially just having an election and seeing numbers that have come in. There's something that is happening with like we've had enough, and that translates also, I think, within men in the home, is that there has to be a point in time where you say enough is enough, and you begin to make the first steps to lead.
Well, and yes, we've seen it at our governmental level, but the devil is the ultimate deceiver and will just feed you those little bits to say, no, you can live this life. It does not hurt you. It won't matter. God does not matter. And, eventually you see that in our media, you see it in our government, you see it when you go to the grocery store, you see it in every aspect of life that, he's deceiving. And then you, like just what we just said, like you start living that way and you start going to the way of the world instead of fighting it and saying, no, this is not going to take place.
Yeah. And I think you hit on something good, and thank God I have a amazing wife who's spiritually sound and smart that challenges me on this. And men have to stop and ask the question, at some point, am I deceiving myself? Am I actually leading well?
Yeah.
You got to stop and pause on that. Am I leading well?
Yeah, that's a
what
great
does that
point.
even mean?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, well, I pay the bills. I put food on the table. Well, that's great. That's your general responsibilities.
Yes.
Right? But that's not the ultimate responsibility.
No.
And so men I have to stop and pause, because I've been deceived over and over. Like, I'm not leading as good as I think I am.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's always a time, and that's what the wonderful thing about the grace of God is, there's always a time for a reset. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Grace always has the last word. And so there's a constant reset in my life is, hey, I'm checking on myself to make sure, am I leading in a way where I could look at the trajectory of my family, my relationship with my wife and kids, and sometimes that has to be reeled in, man. And I go, I'm not leading as good as I thought. I've really made some errors lately in this area, but I'm fixed as well as you are. I'm going to figure out a way to overcome that. I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And I should never be okay with continuing on where there's error.
I agree. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So what's one of the things that's a great, just great question there. What is one of the ways that you check on that? Like, so most of the guests that I have on the show, like, you take your car into maintenance, right? Because it needs an oil change. You get a tire pressure alert monitor that your tire pressure is low, or you start smelling a funny smell. So you take your car in for maintenance. So let's put that into the man aspect. Let's put that into the father aspect. Husband, what's one thing that you do to check on your marriage and maintenance it to make sure that you are leading in the correct way?
So we see a lot of people in positions where they're leaders. Turn around. Is anybody following you?
Yeah. Well, that's
let's start there.
Yeah.
Turn around. Is anybody following you? Right?
Yeah.
I realized early on that if you have to flex your muscle to lead, I'm the man.
Yeah.
You will submit to me, right? Yeah, that's horrible leadership.
You'll turn around, nobody will be following you.
Well, yeah, and nobody's really going to follow you anyway with that because you're forcing your will.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can push, pull, or dig.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of gravitate towards. Is like you can push somebody where you want them to be. You can pull somebody your direction, or you can dig a hole and let it naturally fall in. And it's like, wow, that was a lot smoother because I'm a pusher.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I get it. That's just kind of the nature I'm driven by. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's not. I'm a puller.
Yeah.
Too. Some people could be pullers, but I've learned that if you're a digger, then you're looking forward and how do I get everybody and myself and my family to this place, right? So I'm going to begin to dig, right? I'm going to begin to encapsulate this whole thing by, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and they don't even know necessarily maybe I'm doing it because I'm the leader,
Yes.
right? And I'm leading without you even knowing.
Yep.
And this is a good conversation because there's a lot of ways. I had some bad discipleship in my Christian life before where it was you submit because I'm the man. And I watched that for years. I watched the flex and the muscle. And I thought, that ain't good.
Yeah.
Right. And in the end, it wasn't good because everybody fled because you had to flex your muscle. But I also been around some men that I saw were very wise leaders. And I think, spiritual leadership is discernible in far as I can be leading in ways that you don't even know. Is submitting to my wife at times good leadership? Oh, heck yes, it is, right? It's not giving up my masculinity. It's not giving up manhood. It's not giving up my leadership role in the home. It's being wise.
Yes.
And so there's that ebb and flow in leadership where I want you to come my direction, and I'm going to provide ways that are spiritual, good, beneficial, building up, edification,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
To keep emotional intimacy, to keep physical intimacy, to keep connection with children. And sometimes that, that role is just, it's day after day, but it's in very small areas. And pretty soon you look back and you're like, wow, the dynamics of our home have changed, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's one good way is first look and see if anybody's following. Two, do you have to flex your muscle to get your way?
Yeah.
Right? Or am I leading by love? That is one way. And do they trust you enough to go, hey, we're packing up and we're moving to a different state? Okay, like that's not that's not a small thing. That was a big challenge for us. And my wife, I love her so much. She trusted the decision. And that's just one aspect of leadership.
I shake my head on that because I just can't fathom. My family's
I
here.
couldn't either.
We live on family land. My grandfather bought us land whenever he was younger and gave it to us, me and my brother. And man, I just can't, small country boy that I am, I can't fathom how much that took for you to follow God's lead and move all the way to East Tennessee, leave everything behind, man. That just speaks volumes as a man, as a Christian, as just a general human being to be able to say, yes, God, lead me, put my foot in front of each other, and you show us where we need to go, not where we want to go. Where do you want us to go? And for you to pack everything up and come to Tennessee, man, that just, I can't fathom that. I can't,
I think when you can script it and when you can figure it out and when you can calculate it, it may not really be what we would call divinely led, right? Because I did this, right? I had a plan and I did this. We didn't.
Yeah.
And sometimes, not all the time. Again, those are times where those calculated risks, walking in the Spirit. You're like, yeah, this sounds crazy. Everybody thought it was crazy. What are you doing?
Yeah.
We had the most amazing church we came from. It was just incredible. Left it all. But you're restless because you know that you're more being called.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen every day. And it doesn't even happen every year.
Yeah.
But there are certain moments in life where there's those earthquakes. They may be 5-10 years apart. And then there's the little tremors in between. This was one of those earthquakes where it's like, this was a big deal. You leave your parents. I even left one of my kids. You leave your church. You leave your great job. You leave ministry. and you leave. And I've watched people do it over the years. And so, to tie that into leadership is I had an amazing wife who believed in our call together. And that obviously there was no pushing, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that's the push thing. Oh, we're going to do it. We're going to go. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't do that if my wife said no.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of things that needed to come together with that. And you have to pull the trigger when you believe that it's God.
But isn't it crazy to see now that you're on this side of it, all the everything that God put in place on the journey here. And that's one thing that I look back on Kennedy and Lincoln's diagnosis and our medical journey and everything we've been through. Like, I was wrestling, I was fighting, I was doing everything like, no, we're going to do this, or, we're going in this direction or whatever. But it didn't happen in the way that I said it was going to. It happened in the way God made it, in his way, in his plan, and according to his will. But now I'm on this side of it. I'm like, thank you, God. Like, thank you for not letting us drive that road, and we went on this road. Like, every piece of the puzzle that was put into place, and to be, and that's what I kind of want to get at. People that are going through a tough time or battling with whatever they may be right now, that yes, you think in your head that you want it to go a certain way, or you want something to happen, and you don't feel like God's answering your prayers. Neil said it perfectly the other day at church. He was like, God will answer your prayers. He'll either tell you yes, he'll tell you no, or he'll tell you not right now. But God will answer your prayer. Even though you don't think he's answering your prayer, he will answer your prayers in one of those three ways. And so that's what I'm saying for everybody listening, like, that if you're going through that tough time, like, let God lead you. Because when you get on the other side of it and you look back, you will thank God for the way that it was all just put together. Yeah. And it's so much better plan than what we could ever think of.
Yeah. And I mean, you hit it right on the money. There is a stoplight issue. It's red, slow down, or proceed.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
So, I think sometimes we want all these things, but yet we forfeit and not see, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Have I somewhat tried to master my own home?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I've been in ministry for a long time. I love people. I love preaching God's word. I love teaching people. I love discipling. I love all of that. But I realize this, and I'll die on this hill. If you're not leading your house well, if you're not leading your wife well, if you're not that person, and listen, I've hit and missed on this, so I've not arrived at this by any means, but it is something that I'm constantly driving towards. If your family is not coming to you, if there's not leadership there, you really got no business doing anything else, and you won't be able to do anything else successfully.
Yes.
I'm convinced of that. So if you could, that's why when qualifications are given in 1 Timothy chapter 3, bishops, elders, pastors, and then deacons after that, is that it says in there for bishops and pastors, elders, I'll use synonymously, manage your home well. Manage the affairs of your, well, what does that mean, manage my home well?
Yeah.
I pay my bills. I do these things. That's not what he's talking about. Managing the problems well. How do I manage the problems in my home?
Yeah.
And I have to be humble enough to listen, especially to my wife, to like, you really missed the mark on that one.
Yeah.
Or you're missing the mark, or you have missed the mark on that a few times, and like, dang, that's hard as a man to receive. But again, what is leadership is not just masculinity, which is very important.
Yes.
Right? That's a big topic in our culture right now. But it's also tenderness. Can I be both at the same time? Absolutely, and you should. How do I care for the emotional affairs of my home while yet being the protector at the same time?
Which
right?
shows more masculinity
well, it does.
than flexing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to be able to receive that and respect it and
absolutely.
Take care of
and if you're unbalanced in that whole process, then you're going to be a beta male over here. You couldn't lead yourself out of a wet paper bag, or you're going to be the guy that's flexing his muscles, trying to force everybody or just overprotecting
Yeah.
and don't have that emotional care and connection with the members of your household, especially your wife.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's that's kind of another issue is, especially being a blended family. I've learned that, and obviously in a nuclear family of any sort, the marriage is the most important concept and relationship in the whole home, because if that is centered, if that is working in a manner spiritually like it should, like God ordained it to, then everything else in the home, I'm not going to say it's completely taken care of itself, but that sets the temperature in the home, and it fixes a lot of things just like that. When you're immovable as husband and wife together,
Yes, yeah.
every other relationship in the home changes.
Well, your kids, they want to be you. My son, my daughter, they want to either be me or be my wife or be a blend of both of us. And if we're not respecting each other as husband and wife, what do you think our kids are going to do? They're not going to respect either. So it needs to start there of respecting and showing love, and like one or the other at different times, like you said, ebb and flow, being the rock for each other. That's exactly the way your kids are going to be brought up too. They're going to respect, they're going to love, they're going to be the rock when you need them to,
Yeah. So we're exactly right. So we're in that stage now where we have 2 boys in the Marine Corps, and then we have a 24-year-old living with us, and then we got the 2 boys in the Marine Corps, and we've got our 16-year-old daughter getting ready to be 17 soon, and then 14 and 13. So the 16 and the 2 boys in the military, they're at that stage where they're like, trying to find somebody. And it's neat to see that they're saying, we want to find somebody like you, Mom.
Wow.
So that's the highest compliment for her.
Oh, yeah.
And not only that is that, and I've had to be humbled lately, is when what do the girls witness in me?
Yeah.
How I interact with their mother. And lately, the youngest one is, I don't like when I talk like this to her mother. I'm just straightforward, and I realize, and that's part of leadership, right? I realize that I don't think I'm doing anything wrong.
Exactly, yeah.
But they see it differently. So I could there's the leadership role. I can either go, well, y'all are just too sensitive. Or I can say, man, I should probably listen to the prophets in the home, right?
Yeah.
Right? If it's coming from a child and it's coming from another person, it may just be me talking. There may the way that I talk, but I need to change for the sake of peace in my own home. I want my girls to witness that I love their mother well.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And so that they will maybe think about choosing that style of relationship for their own relationship. Yes. So those are the things where you're like, yeah, I don't think I'm being rude, but if they say it, I've got to humble myself and say, I got to change that.
Yeah.
And some things are hard to change.
And like you said, it may not be what you're saying.
No.
It just may be the tone and the way it's delivered. 100%. And that's so strong that, you speak of both your sons and your daughters, because the man's role in the home is so important, because one, you're teaching your sons how to treat a woman and, the way that they should be to their girlfriend, their wife, however it may end up. But you're also teaching the daughters how they should be treated and what they should be looking for. So it's such a strong role in the household.
It is. And, my boys, my son, Caleb, my biological son, he's so attached to Jacqueline, my wife. He'll call and he'll say, where's Mama? Going to talk to Mom? I'm like, bro, what, you don't want to talk to me?
What am I, chopped liver?
But that's the dynamic that I love, is that there is that care. There is that, I want to share with you a girl that I met at church. He's stationed in the state of Washington. So he's met a girl at church recently, and he wants to tell his mom, about her right away.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, what about me? But I'm grateful that he has that connection and she has that influence. And so that dynamic, so all those dynamics working together in the home, I want to keep my children close to me.
Yes.
And I don't want to suffocate them in their decision-making process, but I want them to be close to us so that we have a voice of influence.
Yeah.
And we have that avenue that's open. And again, if I take the wrong leadership role in my home, I'm going to close those doors.
Yeah.
Right. By
exactly.
default, I'm going to close those doors, and I'm not going to have that line of influence to speak into them. They'll ask me, what do you think about this? And that to me is gold.
Yeah.
That means that, I have not negated the aspect of being able to speak into their life. I have an open door. I'll take that above anything else.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Because influence is important.
Well, that's part of leadership.
It is.
That's a huge part of leadership. If people are coming and valuing your opinion and, getting your interest on what they're taking, that's leadership.
And they're saying, I trust how you do life.
Yes.
What do you think about this?
Exactly.
Right. I see you doing it.
Yeah.
Right. Not like, well, I'm your dad. You should be asking me about that. That's the wrong leadership style.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
That's going to, people are going to clam up and they're not going to turn to you. They're going to turn to some other source.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And that's where, man, that's huge. That's so powerful. That's big. Because saying that, you're closing that door and you're opening it up to the whole world, which is so corrupt.
Well, we are in the position we are in for in large part in our culture because there's been a breakdown of the family. Yeah. There's been a breakdown of the leadership role. Let's be honest. Men have forsaken their roles to be leaders in the home.
Thank you for watching part 1 and come back tomorrow for part 2. Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast. Please like, review, and subscribe.